The arena was a cacophony of noise, a swirling vortex of cheers, jeers, and the clanging of weapons. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, blood, and the metallic tang of fear. Above the chaos, the towering figure of Zorath, the 8-foot-tall alien gladiator, stood victorious once again. Her muscular frame, covered in shimmering blue scales, glistened under the harsh lights of the Coliseum. Her 4 arms flexed as she raised her twin plasma axes high, basking in the adoration of the bloodthirsty crowd. Zorath was undefeated. For years, she had crushed every opponent thrown her way. Alien warriors, genetically enhanced beasts, and even rogue combat drones. She was the champion of the Galactic Coliseum, a symbol of invincibility. And now, as the announcer's voice boomed across the arena, she prepared to face her next challenger, a human. The crowd erupted in laughter. A human? In the grand scheme of the galaxy, humans were considered weak, fragile, and insignificant. They were newcomers to the interstellar stage, barely capable of holding their own in a fight. Zorath smirked, her sharp teeth glinting as she turned to face the entrance gate. This would be over quickly. The gate creaked open, and out stepped Sergeant Marcus Kane, a human marine. He was tall by human standards, but next to Zorath, he looked like a child. His combat armor was scuffed and battered, a testament to countless battles, but it paled in comparison to the advanced technology worn by most gladiators. In his hands, he carried a simple combat knife and a battered energy shield. The crowd laughed harder. Zorath tilted her head, her glowing yellow eyes narrowing. "Is this a joke?" she growled, her voice deep and resonant. "You expect me to fight this insect?" Marcus didn't respond. His face was calm, his eyes focused. He had been through hell to get here, captured by slavers and forced into the gladiatorial pits. But he wasn't afraid. He had faced worse odds before. The announcer's voice boomed again. "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for the fight of the century. Zorath, the undefeated, versus the human marine." The crowd roared as the countdown began. Zorath flexed her muscles, her axes humming with energy. Marcus tightened his grip on his knife and shield. The buzzer sounded, and the fight began. Zorath charged first, her massive frame moving with surprising speed. She swung her axes in a wide arc, aiming to cleave Marcus in two. But he was ready. He ducked under the first swing, his shield deflecting the second. The impact sent him skidding backward, but he kept his footing. The crowd gasped. No one had ever survived Zorath's opening attack. Zorath snarled, her confidence wavering for the first time. She lunged again, her axes a blur of motion. But Marcus was quick, dodging and weaving with precision. He wasn't just fighting, he was studying her. Every move, every strike, he analyzed, looking for weaknesses. The fight dragged on, and the crowd grew restless. Zorath was used to quick victories, but this human was different. He was relentless, refusing to go down. Her frustration grew, and her attacks became more erratic. She swung wildly, her axes missing their mark as Marcus danced out of reach. Then he struck. With a burst of speed, Marcus closed the distance between them. His knife flashed, slicing through the joint of Zorath's lower left arm. She roared in pain, dropping one of her axes. The crowd fell silent, stunned by the sight of the mighty Zorath wounded. Marcus didn't let up. He pressed his advantage, his shield deflecting her remaining axe as he slashed at her legs. Zorath stumbled, her movements slowed by her injuries. For the first time in her life, she felt fear. The crowd's jeers turned to cheers, not for Zorath, but for the human. They had never seen anything like this. A human, standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest gladiator, and winning. Zorath swung her axe in desperation, but Marcus was ready. He ducked under the blow and drove his knife in her side, piercing the scales and drawing blood. She staggered back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Her glowing eyes dimmed as she realized the truth. She was losing. Marcus stood tall, his knife dripping with alien blood. "Yield," he said, his voice steady. Zorath growled, her pride refusing to let her surrender. She charged again, but her movements were sluggish, her strength fading. Marcus sidestepped her attack and delivered a crushing blow to her knee with his shield. She fell to the ground, her axe slipping from her grasp. The crowd was on its feet, chanting Marcus's name. He stood over Zorath, his knife at her throat. "Yield," he repeated. Zorath looked up at him, her yellow eyes filled with a mixture of pain and disbelief. She had never been defeated, never been humiliated like this. But she had no choice. If she didn't surrender, he would kill her. "I yield," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The crowd erupted in cheers as Marcus stepped back, lowering his weapons. Zorath lay on the ground, defeated and broken. The mighty Gladiator, the undefeated champion, had been brought to her knees by a human. The aftermath of the fight was a blur. Marcus was hailed as a hero, his name echoing throughout the galaxy. He had proven that humans were not to be underestimated, that even the smallest and weakest could rise to greatness. As for Zorath, her defeat marked the end of an era. She retired from the arena, her pride shattered. But in the quiet moments, as she reflected on her loss, she found a strange sense of respect for the human who had bested her. He had fought with honor, with skill, and with a determination she had never seen before. Months later, Marcus received a message. It was from Zorath. She had left the gladiatorial life behind and was seeking a new purpose. She wanted to learn from him, to understand what it meant to fight not for glory, but for something greater. Marcus agreed to meet her. As they stood face to face once again, there was no animosity between them, only mutual respect. Zorath extended a hand, and Marcus shook it. "Teach me," she said. And so, the once mighty gladiator became the student of the human marine. Together, they trained, fought, and forged a bond that transcended species and rivalries. In the end, Zorath found not just a teacher, but a friend. And Marcus? He had proven that even in the vastness of the galaxy, a human could make a difference. He had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. And in doing so, he had changed the course of history. The 8-foot alien gladiator had laughed, until the human marine made her beg for mercy. And in that moment, the galaxy learned to never underestimate the strength of a human.